Lex Luthor is probably one of the most well-known Superman villains that we've ever had. Between him, Zod, Brainiac, and so many others, we have so many countless Superman villains that have always brought a very big eye and have always been so well known to countless fans, whether they be comic true fans or just comic casuals. So, my main thing is there is another person that is very similar to Lex Luthor in the Marvel Universe that I honestly feel Lex would have been the perfect villain to antagonize. This obviously being Tony Stark's Iron Man. These two characters are so similar in so many different ways that they honestly just make so much perfect sense to be have an Elseworld storyline where they would have some kind of connection. Obviously, they are from two different universes, so it would never happen in any actuality. But in all fairness, those two characters are just so similar that you have to talk about it. Iron Man and Lex Luthor. Two characters that are basically just both rich boys that have insane genius technologies and insane just genius minds that they do almost whatever that they can with it. I honestly feel like these two would just be perfect counterparts for each other strictly due to that reasoning. Tony Stark is a character that was never really popular until Robert Downey Jr. put on that mask and was able to actively make that character what it is today. He was the person that brought it up. And Lex Luthor has the same thing with Smallville, making him way more well known, but he's always been a somewhat sort of popular character, being a character that almost anybody would automatically know if you just said the name out loud. So, my main thing is with these two characters, there are so many different things that I honestly could talk about that I'm actually going to talk about in this video to really just prove my point and make you guys understand why I feel they would be perfect villains for each other. Well, just perfect counterparts for each other. As I already stated, they are very similarly two points of the exact same catalyst, in all fairness. They are both rich. They are both people that have fairly decent notoriety and fairly decent viewpoints of the general public. Obviously, not everyone always knowing who Lex Luthor is, and them just both being insane geniuses with the ability to create technologies way high above their capabilities. The main thing with Lex Luthor is he just doesn't like the fact that Superman, an alien, someone that has all of these super abilities, is the savior of the Earth. He feels like that always should be him, and he always has like some very main reason to antagonize him. He obviously wouldn't have this exact same problem with Tony because of the fact that Tony is a human that is just basically really just modified in a lot of different ways. But the main thing that I honestly would see them having some kind of issue is because of the fact that they are both these two high company people that own these very big giant companies. Lex Corp and like Luthor Corp, whatever, and the obviously Stark Industries. These two companies would probably be neck and neck in the Marvel universe if they were both together, or even in the DC universe. They would just always be neck and neck. Two industries and two businesses that basically do quite literally a lot of the same things. Developing technologies, developing resources, doing all of these big things that really just help the general public or hurt the general public in very many ways. Obviously, with Iron Man, if we just go with like Robert Downey Jr., his version or whatever, or many versions, he wasn't always this very good person prior to becoming Iron Man, depending on which version you're using. He was this basically person that was just selling these weapons to the military, just selling military grade weapons, and basically being considered somewhat of a warmonger, like just a war profiteer. But obviously, him and Lex probably would most likely have a fairly decent relationship early on, especially when they're younger, because of the fact that they are just so similar and they would have to be running in the same categories. They would be running in the same circles. They would probably know each other fairly well. And the only main reason that they would ever have a problem is just because Lex is basically just psychotic in most of forms. So they would just have a very big problem in the competing industries. And let's be fair, there would never be a situation where Lex would be able to even think about buying out Stark Industries, so they would just always be competing in so many ways, both of them just trying to devise oh, let me who can make the best new weapon, who can make the best new technology. And especially once Tony would be able to make something like the Iron Man suit, Lex would just be right behind him, trying to just really antagonize him in so many ways. Especially once we get things like, oh, Thor popping into the scene, the Avengers popping into the scene. There would just be a very big thing where Tony has his basic perfect villain, the exact opposite of him, a counterpart for him, that the main difference and the only difference would be just strictly their personality. That is the only differing thing. I've always said this about Batman too. The fact that the reason that Joker is such a good villain for him is because he's strictly just antagonizing his personality. Joker is almost as intelligent as Batman, as depending on obviously which source you're going with, but he's always just right there trying to antagonize Batman, and that's exactly what Lex would be doing to Tony. Strictly trying to antagonize him, strictly trying to piss him off, break him in almost any format, and just really damage him to the point that he can just have the economical edge and have the company edge against Tony. There would obviously probably be a situation where Lex would probably run for president due to the fact that this is still a Lex Luthor that we know and love, that would most likely try doing the thing where he pulls the entirety of everybody into enjoying his company, enjoying him, loving him, and getting this entire brand of him just being so loved by everybody else. And obviously, he's not going to be announcing that he is this person that is doing all of these villainous things, and he probably would have still a fairly decent actual relationship. I could see so many different situations, so many different scenarios where he probably even also finds the cure to cancer in one world. Maybe does something along the lines of, oh, he might be an Iron Man villain, but he grabs Thor's DNA or he grabs somebody's DNA, pulls an entire same exact scenario. We have a Superboy scenario in the Marvel universe just because Lex Luthor wanted to do something. Obviously, we could always just have another Ultron situation, which I honestly think Lex would be more inclined to do because of the fact of, especially obviously if we are using the MCU version, because obviously in the comics Tony Stark wasn't the person that built Ultron and instead was just Hank Pym. But if we use like the MCU version where Tony was able to build Ultron, I honestly just see Lex doing it also right after Tony's failed, just to show that he could do it better and just to show that he's able to actually control it and have a perfectly good working version. Yes, they would just always be competing, but sometimes that competing would be for the betterment of everybody else. Because of the fact of, if one of them fails, they're probably just going to compete against the other person straight enough until the point that they're just like, okay, you failed at this, let me do it better. Let me prove to you that I'm better. They succeed. Now the world has this better piece of technology, better thing for the entirety of the world. So their rivalry could be a very big help and a very big hindrance. Only the main hindrance being when they're in their super personalities, that when they're in their actual full-on hero versus villain mode. When they're just CEO versus CEO, it's probably one of the best things for everybody. And that's honestly my full-on fair opinion. These two would be such great counterparts, and I'm probably going to end up making a video on what I think would happen in a situation where they actively have to go against each other full on and have to go against each other the entirety of their entire existence. I'll probably make an entire what if video specifically stating this, but please put down in the comments what you guys would like for me to talk about in a video like that. If you guys did enjoy this just short, broad video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you guys can get caught up in the next videos. But I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.